I want to talk a little bit about Mac Miller because he just came out with I say he loosely, his estate or whatever you want to call it, came out with a new album, Balloonerism. And this is not the first time that we've received a posthumous album from Mac Miller. Is this like the third time? How many albums have they released?
This is the third
Posthumously.
posthumous release,
Okay.
but only one of them I consider like a genuine posthumous album. Like Circles was finished posthumously, although it was already mostly finished. Balloonerism that recently came out, the only thing that was finished was a little bit of mixing and a little bit of sequencing on the album. But like the songs, they were pretty much done. The concept was done. This is like a 2014 release. Same with Faces.
Yeah. What do you like? How do you feel about that? Like, first of all, if he has 3 of these, how many more are they gonna like start releasing?
There can't be that many more. There can't be that. Yeah.
It's pretty
the only
wild.
one I could picture us getting is one titled Delusional Thomas, which is kind of his alter ego. That is like a finished project that I know is out there on the internet that I've heard bits and pieces of. I've never gone seeking it out because I'm just not interested in really seeking out these projects that artists haven't put out. If his estate decides to release it and, you know, mix and master it and finish it, then I'll happily enjoy it. But I think that might be the only one we get in the future, and I'm not convinced we're going to.
Yeah. What do you think about the Balloonerism album? Did you like that?
Balloonerism is fantastic. So that's my favorite era of Mac Miller. Faces is, for my money, the best mixtape of all time. I think it's phenomenal, and Balloonerism is kind of the sister album to Faces. And so the production styles are very similar. The themes are very similar. And so obviously I loved it. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking to me. I'm not a huge, I haven't been following Mac Miller a lot. Like, I really, really enjoy his stuff. But like, I wouldn't follow him, especially now, because like obviously he passed away a while ago now. But I just don't really have my ear to the pulse of what he's doing or what his estate's doing. And even when he was releasing stuff, I wasn't really following it like him that closely. I was more so like, I would just be like, oh, he put out a new album, sweet, I'll listen to it, and then I would usually love it. But it was almost like a side thing, like just kind of like anyway. But listening to Balloonerism and also kind of reprocessing like his other albums, it's pretty crazy how like you can have this much of a longevity in somebody that has passed like that, and just kind of continuing like his spirit in the music world. I don't know if there's anybody, like, is there anybody that has had this many, like, and this long of like a posthumous career? Like,
I don't know. Question.
I don't know if there's anybody.
I would probably argue no. Like, in terms of number of releases that are high quality, I can confidently say no. In terms of longevity for posthumous albums, I could say yes. You know, Tupac, Biggie Smalls, Amy Winehouse. There's more. So let's get into the nitty gritty here, since you aren't, in that deep with the Mac Miller fandom. So this era of 2014, Mac Miller was just going crazy in the studio. He had this little studio that he was working in, and he was just pumping out these tracks. And so, I mean, obviously he had enough to do all of Faces, all of Balloonerism, and then in this era, he also had Watching Movies with the Sound Off and Good A.M. So Faces and Balloonerism, they fall more into the jazz rap genre with lots of atmospheric styled production. And so Balloonerism, it's kind of like a trip. And so thematically, Balloonerism, it's about, I mean, think of what a balloon does. It rises up and then maybe it falls down eventually. Kind of like how you would feel using drugs, or as in Mac's case, an addict would feel. And so Balloonerism is all about going on a trip. It's almost like a dream. And there's this theory that Balloonerism, the last track, so part of this, the theme on Balloonerism is that Mac just can't sleep. He's not able to, whether it be because of the drugs or because of his mental, which he also, sometimes he had bad mental health that he would deal with. So Balloonerism, on the very last track, he finally ends up falling asleep and the phone rings and there's no one there to pick up. So you can interpret this, some people are interpreting it as like, holy cow, like Mac passed away. But the truth is, this was made in 2014. Like, this wasn't. People are viewing it with the lens of 2024, 2025, not 2014, which is how it should be. It should be viewed. So the theory that I have seen on Mac Miller Reddit is that what actually happened is he did fall asleep, and his next album, Good A.M, starts with Mac waking up with an alarm clock. And so obviously the theory there is that it perfectly flows into his next release, Good A.M, and Mac wakes up, and it's just like that is the kind of magic that Mac Miller was able to produce. I'm sure you're familiar with Swimming in Circles, that theory. You know, I mean, it's not a theory like that. They are sister albums, they're companion albums. Like, it's just, it's incredible to what he was able to do. And we miss him. He made great art. And so all we can do is appreciate it at this point.
Yeah. And would you rate this or any of his posthumous albums in kind of some of the best posthumous albums out there? Like, where would you put this, or where would you put maybe one of his other albums if you would consider them?
For me, I don't consider Balloonerism and Faces as posthumous albums. I just consider them posthumous releases. But Circles, I think Circles is the best posthumous album of all time. I have a little ranking here.
Do it. Give it to me.
My top 10 posthumous albums. How many do you want?
You can do all 10.
All right.
I don't know.
At number 10, I've got The City of Love by Jimi Hendrix.
Yes.
All right.
Huge album.
Number 9, I have Are You Still Down by Tupac.
Of course, that's definitely going to be on there.
At number 8, I have MTV Unplugged in New York by Nirvana, the live album. That was released a year after Kurt's death. At number 7, I have From a Basement on the Hill by Elliott Smith. This was compiled by a former producer and an ex-girlfriend of his.
That's so funny, but
it's kind of funny, but it's a great album.
Yeah, it's a cool story for sure.
At number 6, I have American 4, The Man Comes Around by Johnny Cash. Hurts, by the way, is an all-time Johnny Cash song, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
At number 5, I have Dreaming of You by Selena. Became the first Latin album ever to debut at number 1. Which
that's so crazy. Yeah,
that's pretty beautiful for an album after your death to do something like that. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, like her whole story is so tragic and
it
sad.
is.
Yeah. Anyway, that's great album.
At number 4, I have Lioness, Hidden Treasures by Amy Winehouse. Great album.
Yeah.
With a Nas feature, by the way. Kind of random, but it works for me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
At number 3, I have The Shining by Jay Dilla. Come on. A close friend put on the finishing touches. There are rumors that in his hospital bed making this album, his mother was there massaging his fingers so that he could continue producing. Like,
that's crazy. Wow.
There's just so much heart in the album.
Yeah.
At number 2, Life After Death, Biggie.
Yeah.
Got to be on this list, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Tons of hip hop staples on that.
That one was released like how many days after?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah, okay. For some reason, I was thinking 2 days, which I was like, that's fine. Yeah, 2 weeks. You're right.
Yeah, 2 weeks. But I mean, the hip hop staples: Mo Money, Mo Problems, Kick in the Door, Hypnotize. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
And then at number 1, I have Mac Miller Circles because of what we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
there are just some projects that make you feel things differently.
Yep.
And this album is so emotional, so personal that it, in a way, it's so tragic, but at the same time, it's also cathartic and healing. In a way.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've got it at number 1 just because of what it does for me.
Yeah. I was like a huge Amy Winehouse person for a while. So like that album has a kind of a special place for me. I feel like when I think about music geniuses that have passed away, she would be in my top 3 probably. Where I just feel like if she was still around making music, I would have Mac Miller probably in the top 3 or top 5, but probably in the top 3. The other, like, number 1 would probably be, wow, it's really hard to rank this.
Dude,
this is
hard.
This is way off the cuff, but probably Kurt Cobain would be in there somewhere too. But
what about Jimmy?
Jimmy is in there for sure, but I feel like he did a lot already. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like there was as much missing. Jimmy's really tough.
The problem
I
is he
feel
did so much in such a short
yeah,
amount of time.
I know.
Same
That's
with
the
artists
issue.
like Biggie. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
what Biggie's peak
yeah.
was like 3 years. Like,
I know. Yeah, you're right about Jimmy, and it's really hard. And I probably would feel a little differently if I was closer to like the era that he was around, like
yeah,
doing
that's
that
very fair.
and like
Yeah,
being there and like seeing what he did. But like I wouldn't put like John Lennon in there just because I feel like he did so much that it's like even though yes, like it would be great for him to have still been around, but like I just think like yeah, I put Mac Miller up there just because of like he's just so versatile and he was just getting so he seemed to be just entering his peak
yeah, that's what's so
when he
tragic
passed.
about it, right?
Yeah. And I would say the same with Amy Winehouse. Like she just seemed to
Yeah,
be just entering her peak. And I would get kind of close there with like Kurt Cobain, even though like their peak started right from the beginning. But like I feel like Nirvana was potentially on the cusp of something crazy.
yeah,
Um,
I agree. I
I don't
mean, we're
know that.
talking like all-time greatest rock band potential.
Yeah,
That's what we're
absolutely.
talking about. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so I'm
So
with you
it's
on that.
those would probably be my top three. I would have to put more thought into it. This was like literally off the cuff that I just like started thinking about this. I don't know. There's a band. He wouldn't even be in a top anything, but because it's kind of an obscure band. But there was a band that I loved in high school called Frightened Rabbit. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're like
No,
Scottish. And he had a really tragic end. They think it was like suicide. Like I just think about that because I like when you love a band or an artist to that degree and like you lose that kind of influence, the inspiration, whatever they are to you, it's pretty like jarring and pretty like
yeah,
I get it why like there's certain times I could be pretty insensitive and there's certain times where like a celebrity might pass away and I might be like why are people so upset about that? But then there's other times where I'm like I totally get like how like it would almost feel like a loss of like somebody that like a loved
yeah,
one, a dear one, especially because of the connection people have with music and
yeah. It
losing
makes you
somebody
feel
that's creating
something.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was a good list. I think I would mostly agree with pretty much all of those in that top 10 for sure. Yeah. The Weeknd makes a surprise appearance at the Grammys. He
yeah,
is finally reunited and it feels so good. And like shockingly, whatever that guy's title was, the CEO of being important at the Grammys made an
yeah.
announcement which never happens.
Mr.
And
Grammy.
yeah, so he literally released his album, came to the Grammys, made an appearance. And how do we feel about that? Do we feel like this was kind of a plan that he had? Do you think this was like a part of his rollout, or do you think that this was just kind of like two coincidences that happened?
I would say I would lean more to the coincidence side. I wouldn't be surprised if it is part of the rollout because I genuinely think he was upset with the Grammys because
Yeah,
After
yeah,
Hours got snubbed. And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
I mean, I would be mad too because I love After
mm,
Hours.
yeah,
So, I
yeah,
kind of think it is genuine and it just kind
mm,
of worked out that, the album released so close to the Grammys. Or maybe, I mean, the Grammys are planned months in advance. It's
yeah,
possible he found out he was going to perform at the Grammys and then decided to release
mm,
the album
yes,
around
true,
that time.
yeah, yeah.
So that could have been possible. What
Mm.
did you think about the performance?
I didn't think it was anything super special. Like I don't know.
It didn't
Well, when
move
you
me at
can,
all.
yeah, like when you compare it to the other performances, like you think of the performances that I thought were like particularly good was I like because I wasn't all blown away by Chapel's performance. Like I thought it was okay, but I wasn't like
I
this was
liked it,
amazing.
didn't love it. Liked it,
Yeah,
didn't love it.
hated Benson Boone's. I don't really like Benson Boone.
Everything about Benson Boone, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't
I'm with
stand
you.
his. That was rough. Um, Dochi was amazing.
Dolce was
Um,
amazing for sure.
uh, how am I
Charlie, I
driving?
also thought was pretty
Yes,
phenomenal.
was awesome. I thought it was great. It was kind of like a half like fu, like you know what I mean. It
Yeah,
was kind of like she had that energy to it. Like we're gonna, and whether or not that's actually planned. Like you know what I mean. Like how do you know if anything is actually an fu to the Grammys? But it felt like a little bit of like fu. I'm gonna just be who I am.
Yeah.
I'm sure she planned that, and she's like, this is just the persona I'm gonna play. But
The
it
truth
just
is
felt
that
good.
is the whole. I mean, like that's what Brat is. Like earlier in
Yeah,
her
it
career,
is.
her label was forcing her to make these
Mm-hmm.
certain decisions that would do
Yeah,
well commercially,
yeah,
such as Boom Clap, one of the worst
yeah,
songs of all time.
yeah.
And
Seriously. Yeah.
it's like we all knew, like we were seeing these glimpses, flashes of genius that we knew Charlie was capable of more than making Boom Clap.
Mm,
And finally, it feels like Brat is like, I mean, we got glimpses of it more and more and more and more and more. You know,
yeah,
Crash was great, etc.
yeah,
But then on Brat, like that's the climax, like
yeah,
full
yeah.
creative control, do whatever you want. And ironically, that's what did the best commercially for her.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah,
I agree that performance kind of embodied that vibe,
yeah.
which I appreciated.
Definitely. Yeah,
But
for
the
sure.
Weeknd's performance, it didn't move me at
No.
all. Playboy Cardi should not perform at the Grammys ever again. I'm a Cardi fan. I'm not saying this in any way. That was so garbage. It
Yeah.
was so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it was bad. Like, to be honest, I like forgot that it was even happening. Like, I'm pretty sure like
Right?
I was watching it, and then I got lost in thought, and then all of a
Yeah. I
sudden
mean, it
Cardi
was
was
kind of
up
like,
there, and I was like, okay, Playboy Cardi's up here, and then I was like, oh, this is also just kind of boring. Like, what is
it
going
was
on?
it was the time to go get a snack,
Yeah,
probably.
seriously, yeah.
But I will say, if you ever get the chance to see The Weeknd live, do it because he puts
Mhm.
on one of the best shows ever.
Yeah,
It's phenomenal.
I definitely want to. And now that I'm in a bigger city in the last couple years, I've been just like eating up going to as many concerts as I can try and can get to. But yeah, and I know that he puts on a typically great performance. Like, even you
He's
think
really
about
good
when
live. Yeah.
yeah, well, you think about when he was at the Super Bowl, like that was a really great performance. Like,
Yeah.
and then it's like, what is he doing? He's just on stage, like kind of waving his hands around, like, I don't know. Like, you would
That's
think,
what it makes you, that's what brings the thought to your head, like the question, I mean, is he just here so he doesn't get fined? Marshawn Lynch, like,
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Is this reconciliation actually a real thing?
yeah.
I don't know. Who knows?
Or did he
But
just get paid a lot to
yeah,
go on the
exactly.
stage?
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
you can't blame him for that either. But the
I,
performance didn't move me really in
yeah,
any way. It's cool that he was there, I guess. But
yeah, yeah,
eh,
totally. Yeah. And now, so he's back at the Grammys. He has this new album out, but it's going to be the last like album under the Weeknd moniker, right? Like, that's
right.
so, well, like, who knows? Maybe that's not, maybe something will happen, but according to him, he's no longer going to be doing that. So, like, this era is over. We don't know what's
Yeah.
coming next for him. And with that in mind, are we sad? Are you sad it's over? Do you think that?
I am sad because unfortunately it feels like he's moving into film. And
So he's just
I don't
abandoned?
know if
Yeah.
he is very good at it.
Yeah.
He's
What did you
really good at
think?
making music, though.
Yes, he is. Did you enjoy like the music that he accompanied with his like show or whatever he had going on?
No, not
Yeah,
really.
I didn't
But
either.
I will say Popular is a bop.
Yeah.
That's a bop.
Yeah, it is a bop. Yeah.
But no,
I didn't think any of it was very good. And it
it
seemed
felt
like,
kind of bland and
yeah,
generic to me,
it did. Yeah.
which you would expect to accompany a TV show. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that's what it's for. It's not
Yeah. But you
for the
wouldn't expect
consumption
that
that,
from him. You would think like,
right.
oh, this is going to be great because it's from him. But yeah, so I would say, I guess let me put the question this way. Is he retiring well? Because we talk about, we've gone back to sports a lot. That question always comes up for superstars in sports. Are they going to retire well? Or are they just going to be like Vince Carter and just be in the league for freaking ever?
Yeah.
Or Dirk Nowitzki, like, or are they going to retire on a good note, go out when they're relatively strong? To me, this feels like, even though it's kind of like, oh, this sucks, I feel like he's kind of like doing this well in a sense. Like,
Yeah. It feels like he's going out on top. Like,
yeah,
I'm not saying Hurry Up Tomorrow is the best Weekend album, but
it's not a
it
flop
feels like
either.
he's going out on top.
Yeah.
And it feels very final. I don't know if you have clued into this, that the last track on Hurry Up Tomorrow actually perfectly fades into the first track on
Yeah.
House of Balloons.
Yeah.
So it
It's
feels
crazy.
pretty final, right? Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't
Yeah.
do something like that
Mhm.
and then come back. I mean,
Yeah.
people do
And
that,
they
but
do, yeah. You never know. Like he might be like, man, I missed this, like, or I made a horrible mistake going into film. Like I'm going, but I guess the good news is for him, where this isn't his actual name. He can go
yeah,
back into music under a different name, whatever
which
he
that could be
wants
the
to
plan. I
be.
mean, it
Yeah,
seems like
it's
he may
true.
just go under his government name,
Yeah, yeah,
just based off of the vibe I'm getting and how he's
yeah.
kind of been moving recently. It
Mhm.
feels like if he's going to continue to make music, he will just do it under his government name, wrap up the weekend with a bow, and finish out on top as one of the pop artists with the best discographies in pop music history.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
is. It's one of the
Yeah,
best. So
yeah. It is.
I think
It's
it would be wise
insane.
for him to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess going from that, saying he has one of the best discographies, where would you put her, or I guess just what would your ranking be of his discography? Ultimately, where would Hurry Up Tomorrow land somewhere?
Well, very last, it would be Beauty Behind the Madness for me.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah.
It just has the most skips that you can find on a weekend album, I think.
Abs-
At 7, I've
uh-huh.
got My Dear Melancholy. It's concise and to the point with no misses. So from here on out, like,
Yeah.
I genuinely enjoy
It's almost,
everything.
yeah.
I just think the other albums are better.
Yeah.
At 6, I would have Kissland. I love
Mhm.
the production and the Japanese influence, but I don't
Yeah.
revisit it as often as,
Yeah. I
I don't know, I would
I
want
don't
to.
know, like I don't think I revisit that really that much at all. Like
Okay.
I don't remember the last
Yeah.
time that I've listened to I don't listen to it. Well, I shouldn't say that. I do listen to a decent amount of the weekend in the grand scheme of the amount of stuff I listen to. But yeah, I would say that I've gotten into like a comfortable rhythm with what I listen to with the weekend. So anyway,
Yeah.
but I would agree. I don't really go back at all to that album.
At number 5, I have Dawn FM. I love how conceptual it is, and I love how cohesive it is.
Uh,
Also, like, it just is a very consistent album.
uh,
I just don't think it has, well, that's not true. I was going to say it doesn't have the highs of his other albums, but it does.
yeah.
I don't know. I like the other albums more. What do you think about that?
Dawn FM is my favorite
Okay.
weekend album. I'm not saying it's his best. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
I think
Which
the
that's what we're doing.
production I think the production on that album is otherworldly. I don't
is.
know what was going on with him and his producers, but they tapped into heaven at that on that album, in my opinion. When that first track, which is basically like just it's not an instrumental, but it's basically interlude, but it
Yeah.
fits into the grand. But that first track, and Jim Carrey says his thing, and then it goes into the down FM, and then as soon as the beat for Gasoline comes on, like that is one of those feelings that I chase.
Yeah. Were you watching it? Were you watching the live stream that he did with Apple Music? Is that the first time you heard it?
No, it wasn't the live stream. I
Okay.
wish that it was. And the first time I heard it, it was just me like being like, oh, I gotta listen to this. And this was around the time actually where I started going back to like I want to listen to an album from start to finish. And I did that with some albums, but like from then on I decided like that I just made the decision like I'm just going to from now on listen to when an album comes out, I'm just gonna start it and I'm gonna try to listen to the whole, not like in one sitting, but I'm gonna try to make I want to hear what the artist says. Then before that, I was like, there'd be times where I'd pick and choose. If I really liked the artist, I would obviously start. Like I would go from the beginning. But that was like one of the first albums that I was like, I should just do that. Which I'm so glad that I did with that album
That's a
because
good album to do it to.
yeah, it is. But yeah, as soon as I heard like to me, that is one of the best like instrumental beats to start a track, and it just sounds so good. And I think a little bit about myself, it takes me a long time unless I'm like intentionally like reading lyrics, it takes me a long time to get lyrics from a song. I probably the first like 3 to 5 listens and just listening to the instrumentation,
I
nothing else.
actually am pretty similar in that way.
Yeah, like it, and that's and that is what drives me mostly to music. There's times where I'm like, yeah, like where I'll maybe like a song for its lyrics, first, but that's very, very rare. Mostly if I'm like, this is one of my favorite songs, it's just because instrumentally it's just amazing. And then obviously the cherry on top is that the lyrics are great as well. But so to me, anyway, this is a long diatribe of me just saying Dawn FM is probably my favorite Weeknd album. And it's mostly just because of just the production behind it. I just feel like
it's very nicely produced.
Yeah.
What I will say is in my opinion, these 4 albums that I'm going to mention now are all better produced in my opinion, except for one of them. Okay. So that's where I am going from here. Number 4, I have Starboy. Mm-hmm. It is a little bloated, that I'm willing to admit.
I would agree.
But the highs are just so high. I feel it coming with Daft Punk, Secret, Sidewalks with Kendrick, Attention, like the title track.
Huge tracks.
The Lana Del Rey feature. It's just like, brings you back to an era. So I love it. At number 3, I have the new album, Hurry Up Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's such a good ending for the Weeknd era. I think it's the perfect ending for the Weeknd era. Yeah. And I actually think this is his best produced album. Before I got on this podcast, Mike Dean just barely tweeted out, actually, it's been 1 week and it's still the best album I've ever made, alluding to Hurry Up Tomorrow. So Mike Dean thinks it's his best produced album. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. But that just shows that he's very proud of his work, and for good reason. Totally. It's very nicely produced.
Well, and it is like, to some degree, it is splitting hairs when you're talking about best produced album that The Weeknd has put out, because his albums are notorious for being masterfully produced. And I think for me, I didn't connect as much with Hurry Up Tomorrow's just general sonic vibe. I think and I think that's why I would put some, like, I would obviously have put Dawn FM at number 1, and I probably would put Hurry Up Tomorrow before Starboy. I would probably have that flipped. So that's probably where I would be. And then the other 2, which I guess I don't know what order, I can only assume what order they're in, but I think I'm right. I would have them, or the other 3. Yeah.
Other 2.
Or 2, yeah.
What do I have at number 2?
I think you have Trilogy at 2.
You're right. At number 2, I have Trilogy.
Nice. Okay, I was going back and forth so much.
Yeah, I love the dark feel of these mixtapes.
I do too. I gravitate toward dark themed music for sure.
Yeah, well, this is perfect then. Also, the nostalgic factor is there. I don't really know if Trilogy's like better than a couple of these albums we've mentioned, but
yeah.
I love
there's something about what he created with the trilogy. Like,
The Weeknd pulls you in to his atmosphere, and his world building skills is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Which is why I love my number 1 album so much. But still, speaking on Trilogy for The Weeknd, like, it felt like he was creating a subgenre. Like it was very R&B, but in such a dark way that totally. Like in the 90s, R&B was all love and breakup, but like Trilogy was just dark.
Yeah,
so much darker than anything before. So it felt like it kind of was its own thing.
Yeah,
and it just kickstarted his whole career, and it leads us to my number 1 album from The Weeknd, After Hours. Like I mentioned, the world building on After Hours is phenomenal. I think that the sequencing on this album is perfect. I love the character, the persona on After Hours. I love the hits. I love the non-hits, the deeper cuts. I love everything. There's no misses. I think there's no skips. You know, it's a very consistent album, and it is very well produced. His vocals are as good as they've ever been. Yeah. And it's hard to argue against, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I think After Hours is his best album. Okay. It's definitely not the album that I listen to the most, though.
That's fair. Everybody has their own preferences.
Yeah, and I think that's just what it comes down to. I definitely think that that's his best, and then then I would agree. I think I would rank. I think I already said this. Hurry Up Tomorrow just below Starboy, but I think and then flip it. Like, if I were to go by what is my favorite, I would flip Dawn FM all the way to the top, just because I don't know there's just something about that album that hit me at the right time, and it's the same thing like when people just with The Weeknd for the the ground floor, like on the ground floor for the trilogy, right? Like when you were a part of that and you felt like you were a part of that, and you can kind of say like, I listened to the Weeknd before he was cool, like all that stuff just like builds
Yeah,
into the lore of why the trilogy is so great.
that's true. But
Yeah.
like you said, like After Hours is the peak. Like The Weeknd is always compared to Michael Jackson for good reason.
Yep.
They have a lot of similarities. After Hours is The Weeknd's Thriller. Like
Yeah.
it's the peak, and I don't really think you can argue it in terms of it being his best album. Obviously, Michael Jackson has a ton of phenomenal albums that you could argue as your favorite, and no one's going to even blink twice because they're so good. Same with The Weeknd. But After Hours is the equivalent of Thriller for this generation, in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 I would agree with that. It's a phenomenal album. And it's going to be kind of like a mourning period for just realizing The Weeknd is until he announces what his next venture is, which who knows how long that'll take. It'll kind of be like a mourning period because that thought of him not being in the music world will be there because everybody is kind of thinking like, is he done with music? I know a lot of people are like, nah, I think he's just like moving to a different persona or something like that, like which could be it. And then that would be, in terms of music, that would be probably the best case scenario. But worst case scenario is he ventures into film, or he just decides, I'm done. I just want to.
Yeah, he's had a good career. You can't even blame him. You know, if he wants to just take a break, that's fine.
I would be shocked if that was like, if he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna like buy a ranch in Montana and just like ride horses for the rest of my life or something. I would be shocked. But you know, he's earned it. So, but yeah, I think, and that's why it's so funny. And I guess maybe he's setting up like potentially Hurry Up Tomorrow getting like Grammy nominations, but like it's funny that he's like done, but he just like re-entered the Grammys. Like it's kind of like
that's
kind
true.
of ironic in a way.
That. Yeah.
Like he's like, yeah, this is the last of The Weeknd. I'm back, Grammys. Like
that's interesting. I didn't even think about that.
I don't know. Like, and again,
ironic.
it could just be because he's like hoping that Hurry Up Tomorrow will maybe get some nods and ultimately some awards, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
The problem is it came out so early in the year. Like,
I know.
We act like we don't have recency bias, but we do. Like,
yeah.
It's
true.
It's just a part of how we are naturally. Dune 2 came out so early in the year last year, but people already forget that Dune 2 was like one of the like undisputable top 3 movies of the year.
Yeah.
That's just what happens. I guess that Chappell Roan's album though is
that's true, because
because it actually came out in 2023 at the end there. So.
Yeah.
And
it came out in
we were talking
November,
about Kendrick.
December.
It would be the same thing.
GNX,
it also came out in November, so
but
we'll see.
For Chappell Roan, she won Best New Artist. She won what else did she win? Was that it? No, she won one more, didn't she?
I think that might have been it.
No, that was it. So it kind of is that way because she didn't win anything from it. It got lots of nods, but she didn't win.
And she may have won Best New Artist because she also had one of the biggest hits of the year in Good Luck, Babe. And so she still was kind of on our mind, right? So we'll see what happens at the 2026 Grammys with The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar. But
some two early albums that, and again, it is one of those things. Well, like as music reviewers, we wouldn't. Well, like, are you considering GNX to be like for you when you rank, like when you bring out when's your cutoff for when you would do your like best of 2024?
I just I do it by the calendar year.
So you would listen to it. And like, I guess the good thing is like not very many artists that would have a really good album are going to be releasing much in December. Like that's usually just a write-off month. So for the most part,
unless you're SZA and you want to release a deluxe album that has enough tracks to make an album.
It's true.
And so like, admittedly, like I have a best of year playlist that I do every year, and like my best of 2024 playlist, it's got a lot of saves that, people were enjoying it. Unfortunately, SZA's not on there very much.
Yeah.
I actually think what I did is I put my 2 favorite songs off of the deluxe just at the end of the playlist. I only did 300 songs. That was the cutoff. And so I removed my bottom 2 songs and said, sorry, SZA, you released too late for me. Like I want you in the playlist, but I can't rank you. It's been out for 2 weeks, Like I'm not gonna
exactly.
You're not gonna rank you above the music that's been out for months. So that's just how I do it because for my brain it's easier. It's probably not the most fair way of doing it, but it is what it is.
Hey, it's your own system, so it
That's
doesn't really
very true.
matter. It doesn't really matter. You
That's
do what
true.
works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard. It is hard, like when you've got these albums that come out like technically in a different year, but because of the schedule, the nominating schedule and all that stuff, like you have to meet these certain cutoffs. So yeah, it's gonna be hard, but at the same time, like I don't know what 2025 is looking like for hip hop. Like obviously maybe someday we'll get like Playboi Carti's new album, but like who's holding their breath?
Maybe Cardi, maybe Rocky.
Yeah, maybe Kanye.
I'm putting my money on Baby Keem. We will
Yeah,
get a Baby Keem album this year. And
that's gonna be
I
good.
would pretty confidently put my money on Jid also.
Yeah.
He tweeted out in 2024 that he's like, should I just release music every month of the year and just release all year? He didn't really release anything. But
You're like, come
he's
on.
been working, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. He's working hard.
We're probably due for an album in 2025.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, I'm sure like JPEG Mafia is gonna release 5 albums or something, and oh gosh.
Yeah, I think Future already said he's gonna drop again.
Gosh.
So
yeah, sound like it's
we'll see.
crazy. Some people just keep just going and going and going. It's wild. Yeah, and then like I just think of pop. Like pop could be pretty scarce this year too. Like you think about
it was such a heavy year in 2024 that
it was so heavy.
Might be a little, we're not going to be eating as much. We might be a little skinny.
Yeah, which is kind of sad. Like it's great when you're in those years when it's like, oh, everybody's dropping, but then it's kind of sad when you think about like when you think about what it means for the year after that.
Right.
You're like, oh man, this
is what's cool about it is like the heavy hitters dropped in 2024, right?
Yeah.
Taylor, Beyonce, Billie, and some newer artists, Chapel, Sabrina.
Yeah.
2025, we might get some heavy hitters like Olivia.
Yeah, it's true.
It's been a little while.
Yeah.
Someone like that. But that leaves the door open for smaller artists to have a bigger platform, right? Because we're itching for pop music. We need it.
Yeah.
All we have this year is Olivia, And so that's a year when like I don't know, just a smaller pop artist could have a little bit more shine than they would have in 2024.
Yeah.
And so for people like us, people like our listeners that are going to listen to this podcast, obviously you're listening to it because you're a music nerd.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. I mean, it makes it fun. I love finding smaller artists like that can rise to the occasion.
For sure. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. The discovery of somebody that you really like and appreciate is a lot of fun. Sometimes that's better than waiting for a release of an artist you already love, because with an artist you already love, you have expectations and potentially you're going to be disappointed, right? So it's like when you find somebody new, you're like, there's no disappointment because you're listening to something you love that you never knew you would love because there's somebody new.
I'm with you. It's like catching some fries at the bottom of your McDonald's bag. It's like the bonus fries.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, I didn't even know we had this in here, but it tastes the same.
I know. It's perfect. Yeah. Well, this has been a great first episode that might be many episodes. So I don't know how we're going to chop this up.
So
this is the 2-hour mark. So it's definitely going to be 2. It could be 3. But this has been a lot of fun. So I hope that we'll be able to have you on again. If you're willing, if I haven't offended you by some of my comments about Kanye.
I'm a Kanye fan. Nothing can offend me.
Oh, yes. I don't know. If you're a Kanye fan, sometimes everything offends you.
That's actually true. Good point. I'm the other breed.
Okay, you're the balanced one. That's good.
So, no, it's been a lot of fun. So thanks for having me on. And
awesome.
I would love to come back.
That sounds great. Well, we will see you guys next time, and thanks for listening.